Morning, Council. We are live.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Good morning. I will call the meeting to order for Thursday, April 1st, 2021. Madam Clerk, would you do a roll call, please?
Councillor Shortreed.
Present.
Councillor Dayu.
Present.
Deputy Mayor Danielson.
Here.
Mayor Moffat.
Present. Thank you. May I have a mover and a seconder for the approval of the agenda? Councillors Dayu and Shortreed.
Moved by Councillor Dayu, second by Councillor Shortreed, be it resolved that the April 1st, 2021 council meeting agenda be approved as circulated.
All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest today? Seeing none, may I have a mover and a seconder for the adoption of the minutes from the previous meeting? Deputy Mayor Danielson, Councillor Shortreed.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Danielson, second by Councillor Shortreed, be it resolved that the March 18th, 2021 regular council meeting minutes be approved as circulated.
All in favor? Carried. Thank you. There are no public meetings or delegations. Item number 9 is building and bylaw enforcement business, and we will bring in Mr. Rogers. Good morning, David.
Good morning, Mayor and Council.
First up for you is the monthly activity report, and pretty impressed with the amount of construction value this early in the year.
Through you, Mayor, it's actually started off to be an extremely busy year. So I'm sure if you looked at that little table, you'll see we're at 36 building permits at the end of February, where last year we had 7. Revenues are really high. It's going to be a really, really busy year because it's continued that way all through March as well. So it should be a busy year.
Well, hopefully busy and manageable. Is there anything in your, other than that, in your report that you'd like to highlight?
No, I think that was pretty much it. Fortunately, this report should have been on last month's council meeting, but it happened just as I got back to work. So that's why it's late coming into you.
Are there any questions from council on this report? May I have a mover and a seconder to receive it? Deputy Mayor Danielson, Councillor Dayu.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Danielson, second by Councillor Dayu, be it resolved that council receives building bylaw report BLDG 421 regarding monthly activities for the month of February 2021, submitted by Greg Moore and dated March 18th, 2021.
All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. Next up for you is the virtual septic social, and you've got a couple of options there that you'd like council to decide on.
Again, through you, Mayor, that's correct. The one thing that's not noted in here, I did speak to WSP directly. They can do the virtual in the evenings as well. So, and that won't change the price. So.
I'll just put it straight out to council. What would you like to do? I see Deputy Mayor Danielson's hand up. Go ahead, please.
That would have been my question, whether they could do it in the evening, because, you know, given that it's, you can view it from anywhere, I think a lot of people might be interested in having an early evening session rather than spending a Saturday, especially in May. So I'd recommend an evening meeting during the week.
Councillor Dayu, you had your hand up. What say ye?
I'm frankly happy with either. You know, I was going to say the Saturday is fine because that's the staff recommendation, but I'm really happy to go with whatever. My thought would be, you know, it's a good opportunity. If we could really advertise this well to the Zone D folk too, then maybe we could tie this up and this could be our last septic social, because it is virtual, so we can get, you know, as many people as we can. But in terms of date, I'm honestly happy with either.
Councillor Shortreed, go ahead.
I'm good with both dates, but I agree with Liz. I think an evening one might be more realistic for a lot of people.
Okay, then it sounds like Tuesday, May 4th would be option 2. We'll go with that. And I think you make a good point, Jen, that let's make sure we get this far and wide. The good thing is it will be another recorded event. The presentation has been recorded and available online since year 1. So it's just one more bit of information that can inform the public. And we know as well that if people find they have a question that hasn't been answered, they can check the FAQ that's online, or they can call WSP themselves. So there's lots of options to become informed. So I think, David, you're hearing option 2 with Tuesday, May 4th. as in the evening will be the one.
Thank you, Mayor. Is there a preferred time, like 7, 8 o'clock, or? 'Cause
Seven.
Someone just said 7, and that's what I would have said.
Yeah.
No, that's okay. Are you guys okay with, that was very casual. You guys okay with 7 p.m.? Deputy Mayor Daniel, are you?
Yes.
Okay, Tuesday, May 4th, 7 p.m. May I have a mover and a seconder for this report and decision? Councillor Dayu and Deputy Mayor Danielson.
Moved by Councillor Dayu, second by Deputy Mayor Danielson. Be it resolved, Council receives building bylaw report BLDG 721 regarding the 2021 virtual septic social submitted by David Rogers and dated April 1st, 2021. And the council directs option number 2. Council selects option number 2 and directs staff to consult WSP with the date and time.
All in favor? That's carried. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Rogers.
Mayor, thank you, council.
Item number 10 is Parks, Rec and Trails business, and we'll bring in Mr. Card. Good morning, Mr. Card.
Good morning, Mayor and Council.
Just one item for you today. This is the report circling back about the related fee reduction, or the COVID-related fee reduction for the tower. Following the EOC's discussion, it was felt that that the full financial picture should be seen by council to make sure that that's if they did want to go with the 50% that they wanted to do last time. So, Chris, if you want to just give us a quick rundown.
That is correct. So EOC wanted council to be able to see the financial impacts of both a 25% and a 50% fee reduction. I've listed the approved fees there for the year relative to that. And the points discussed were that our operating costs at the tower will remain the same. We will have the same staff complement, and we do plan to have the same type of traffic control procedures in place in the fall, with the costs associated with that, as well as all of the property maintenance and upkeep type considerations. Our asset management planning around the tower has historically relied on some of the revenues over expenses if we end up with an operating surplus to be able to support future projects, of which there are many at the tower. So for council's consideration are the 2 different rates and the financial implications, and looking for questions or feedback.
With those numbers in front of you, thoughts from council. Deputy Mayor Danielson.
I know that we had asked for some more consideration, and we're concerned about the amount of revenue lost. And seeing the amounts of money, I hate to complicate things, but I'm kind of wondering about somewhere in between, rather than going to the full 50%, maybe a 35%. That, kind of gives a little bit more consideration to the visitors, and yet doesn't cut down on our revenues quite so badly.
Councillor Shortreed.
I think I'm still on the 25%. The operating expenses haven't changed, and there's still lots to do up the tower. Just because you can't go up the tower, there's still Peekaboo Rock and the trails and everything like that. So, I mean, you're only being deprived of going up the tower.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Dayu, did you have your hand up? You're you're way up in my corner here, so I have to, yeah, thank you.
With difficulties of being on the fence for the second agenda item in a row, I sort of could go either way. I appreciate what Deputy Mayor Danielson's points are, and I appreciate what Councillor Shortreed's points are. I think for me, the main takeaway is, well, there are 2 main takeaways. Number one, something Councillor Shortreed said last time, which was ultimately we're only talking about $1 or $2 for most people. So, we're kind of fine tuning this, but I'm not sure how many people will will feel that difference. But the other takeaway, which was a point made by Chris Card last time, is, as the season progresses and we see the traffic flow, maybe the EOC will think about altering the plan if it feels like that has to be altered. So, with that in mind, maybe I'll move to support Councillor Shortreed's idea of keeping it at the 25, just so that we try to keep those revenues up, and then later on in the season, maybe that will be revisited.
Thank you, and my thoughts are along those lines, that as was mentioned at the last discussion, that the onus to make it appealing to visitors falls to Algonquin Highlands taxpayers, and I'm not sure that's fair. So the 25% is a nod toward an acknowledgement of the fact that the tower itself isn't open, but as Councillor Shortreed said, there's still lots to do there. I support the 25%. I did from the beginning. So on the comments from Councillors Dayu and Shortreed, I would say that that would be the majority, and we'll go with 25%. And the EOC is very attentive. Chris, the majority of items on the agenda seem to fall to Mr. Card's portfolio, and there's long discussions. All of these things are very seriously considered by the EOC. I just felt that this was something that the two items as regards to finances needed to come back. So appreciate the conversation, and we'll go with the 25% then, as the majority would dictate today. And yes, there will be continued attention to all of these things at the EOC. May I have a mover and a seconder to receive the report with the 25% reduction? Councillors Dayu and Shortreed.
Moved by Councillor Dayu, second by Councillor Shortreed. Be it resolved, the council receives Park Recreation Trails Report PRT 821 regarding Dorset Tower COVID-19 related fees reduction, submitted by Chris Card, dated April 1st, 2021. And the council directs staff to proceed with a 25% discount as outlined in this report during the COVID-19 operations at the Dorset Tower property.
All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Card.
Thank you.
Number 11, Public Works Business. A couple of items. We'll bring in Mr. Nicholson. Good morning, Mr. Nicholson.
Good morning, Mayor and Council.
First up is the report from the county's climate coordinator following County Council's discussion about the electric vehicle charging stations. We have some options. There is a recommendation here from the climate coordinator based on County Council's discussions. Did you want to share any of your thoughts or considerations on the matter?
Well, in regards to the documents before you, as you've already noted, discussions took place at the county level. So we're here to decide on what options we need to proceed with as far as the funding aspects of it. And it outlines in front of you the turnkey approach, which is option one, versus owning of the stations, and which route we decide to go on, and also the locations of which these are to be placed. So it's before council. There's the turnkey option, which basically allows very little upfront costs, and installation will be taken. They basically take over the installation and the workings of the charging station. So the other one would be where we do the upfront costs and we have the ownership of them. So we would have to decide which route we wish to go and where we wish to place these. There's been discussion in the past, I believe, in regards to this. So I leave it up to council to give staff some direction on which route we're going to take.
Thank you for that. Sorry, my phone is ringing. I don't know how to turn it off. So there's a recommendation there for option one. So at the county, the discussion was, it covered a lot of bases. There are some considerations in the turnkey approach for any any trenching or panel upgrades, but we were advised at county that that those who install would make the township aware of those costs prior to commencement. So it's not just say yes, thinking you're spending or being involved in this much money, only to find out that it's much greater. And we also spoke about the locations and the reason there is consideration for charging stations to be at a number of places in all the townships. So for us, it would be, I understand, Airport, Dorset, the village of Dorset makes sense, and possibly across Highway 60 with all that visitation to the park. But those would come in the future. As the report says, it's meant to be a phased-in approach. And the township office section of North Shore Road was chosen, hoping that any new vehicles that the township might be purchasing that would be electric would take precedence at the charging station. Minden's doing the same thing. Minden and the county are partnering to have dual ports between the Minden office and the county office. The county EV would be plugged in there, and then the public could use it afterward. So that was why the North Shore Road location was chosen, because hopefully we will be moving toward electric vehicles ourselves. So thoughts from council on that? Councillor Dayu.
Having not overheard the conversation at county, my initial thought when I read through these options was the turnkey does sound appealing. It seems like there would be less staff time required for maintenance and all of those things for installation, but also because technology is changing so fast that I could imagine that in just a few years, there's going to be an upgraded, better thing out there. And we're going to have, if we went with option 2, we'd have these charging stations and maybe they'd be obsolete already. And what do we do with them? And the turnkey seems to answer a bunch of questions for that. Looking forward to hearing other people's perspectives though.
I apologize, my phone is ringing. Councillor Shortreed, go ahead, please.
I agree with Councillor Dayu. I think that turnkey makes sense for staffing, for future problems, so on and so forth. But at the end of the day, somebody else who knows what they're doing is doing it.
Mm-hmm. So are we okay with that and doing the North Shore Road location first with an eye to phasing this in other locations in future years?
Definitely.
Okay, well, I think there's your answer to pass back to county staff. I may have a mover and a seconder to move that along. Deputy Mayor Danielson and Councillor Shortreed.
Madam Mayor, may I make one more comment?
Yes, yes, please do.
With apologies, just because we're on the topic today and it might not come back for a while. I also see this as a really interesting branding opportunity for the township, especially if eventually one of these stations gets up to Highway 60 where a million people, a year are passing by, but they're going on to Algonquin Park and they don't necessarily know that there's this jewel if they just turn right and head down the highway and see all that we have to offer. So yeah, I think there's a little bit of PR, a little bit of branding magic that we might be able to incorporate into the project.
I think you're right. And I think that's part of the intent, certainly at the county, is if there are stations right across, there's definitely an opportunity there and we can take advantage of that ourselves for sure. Yeah, thank you for that. Did I have a mover and a seconder? Yes, I did. And Madam Clerk, would you read the motion?
Moved by Deputy Mayor Danielson, seconded by Councillor Shortreed. Be it resolved that council selects option 1 and be it resolved that council selects option 1 and directs the electronic charging stations be installed at North Shore Road Administration Office, and further that the installations be funded from the modernization funding.
So I believe it's not necessarily the administration office itself. I think it's supposed to be at the community center or in that area. So do we want to say administration office or? I'm not sure if we should be saying that or if it matters. Anybody? Brian?
The one concern I do have with the charging stations, that once they're in place, we're going to have them clearly identified as no parking for others. So for instance, when the farmers market happens, people are trying to get into spots, and if they're taking up those spots, it renders them useless. So we also have sort of a policing component to this. So although we want to make them accessible, we've got to make sure that they stay that way.
So could we leave the decision of the exact location up to staff, because there are those considerations which, and there are many, and I can in my own mind envision a couple of places where it could be. On the one hand, if we are intending to move toward electric vehicles ourselves, staff work in the main office. But then if the public comes to charge when the staff vehicle is not plugged in, it's one more parking space taken up. And then what do? There might be more. Anyway, I mean, those are the kinds of details that I think can be left internally to find the best location. And I don't know that we have to belabor it at council. Deputy Mayor Danielson.
I think right now what the county is looking for more is the number of stations that we want to install and which option we're looking at. I can see benefits to both locations, so I would suspect that we've got a bit of time to finalize that part of the decision.
Yeah, we just need to meet the deadline for April, which we're doing, and then all those details could be sorted out afterward. Yeah. So are you okay with the resolution the way it's written? Because we don't have to be bound necessarily to the main building. Madam CAO?
Just for clarification, is council wishing that the location then come back at a future date, or is council okay with staff determining between the community center and the office?
I personally have no interest in making that level of decision. I think that that's a staffing decision. That's council's job to make the overall decisions, and I believe that staff will take into consideration all the dipsy doodles that might happen there. Deputy Mayor Daniels.
Thank you.
I can't help but think about the conflicts at the community center, especially in the summertime. I see it as being a good location. At the same time, when we talk about the administration office, we've got people coming all day long to get water, and that might offer a kind of a dual purpose. Although we might be wanting to get away from the water installation at the town office at some point in time. But anyway, I don't have an issue with staff deciding what they see as being the best.
Yeah, I think they'll take in all those things into consideration. Brian, did you have something you wanted to add there?
There are water stations that are going to be in place this year over at the community center. So this water station, I believe, is going to be discontinued. So that should all take place this year.
Okay, so I apologize, Madam Clerk. Where are we on this? Do we have a mover and a seconder? We have a resolution. You've read the resolution, so council has heard that resolution. All in favor? That's carried. See, I walked myself right through that. Next up are just a couple of verbal agreements. There's no resolution for the next two items. They're just verbal, and then you'll see them in the bylaws. So Brian, you want to take us to the Waste Wizard?
So my understanding of this is more of a housekeeping portion of council at this point in time. These have already been talked to in previous councils, and we're putting the agreement in front of council to sign off on to proceed with the agreements with the said parties. So it's just more housekeeping.
Yep, and I don't know, does anybody have any questions? Because Brian's right, we did talk about this last time. So, all right, thank you for that. And it's the same with Buckham. It's just the contract extension, and we had spoken previously about that as well.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, well, thank you for your time. We'll see both those things in the bylaw section. And we'll move along to fire services business and bring in the fire chief. Good morning, Chief.
Morning, Mayor and Council.
First up for you is the health and safety policy, which is the annual review.
For the health and safety policy, it is an annual review. The township's required to have a written health and safety policy, which we have, and it meets all legislative requirements. Under the policy, it has to be reviewed yearly. So it's brought forward for your review and a bylaw put to follow.
Council will recall that we normally each are required to sign this document. And I did check with the clerk, and she said that the resolution will ensure that the mandate has been met. And when we next get together, we can put our signatures on it. So are there any questions on this process? Councillor Dayu?
I'm sure just stating what has already been corrected, but on point number 2, measures has a comma instead of an M, but I bet that's already taken care of.
Yes. So we'll just make sure that that gets a second eye on it for sure. Other than that, are there any other questions? May I have a mover and a seconder to receive this report? Deputy Mayor Danielson, Councillor Shortreed.
Moved by Deputy Mayor James, second by Councillor Shortreed. Be it resolved that Council acknowledge receipt of report FD 221 regarding the health and safety policy submitted by Michael French and dated March 23rd, 2021. And further, Council has reviewed the health and safety policy in accordance with Section 25(2)J of the Occupational Health and Safety Act, RSO 1990, and directs a bylaw be tabled to adopt the said policy.
All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. And second up for you, Chief, is the assignment of a rank for the training officer position.
Yes. In 2020, training officer Chris Shelley was appointed for the training officer position. At the time, he was never given an official rank. As you can see in the background, Chris has worked really hard, taking courses, developing himself into a good training officer. We have put a couple more things in place that I've asked him to take on online courses. One's fire inspections and code enforcement, and also as incident safety officer. The goal is to diversify and give every opportunity for Chris to develop, not only as a training officer, but an officer in general. This does meet our strategic vision of showing support to staff and enable myself to mentor Chris as a training officer and other succession plans. Previous training officers have been referred to as chief training officers and have held a rank above captain, which I totally support the rank, but at this time I suggest that the chief training officer should be changed to training officer, as there's no training officers working below the training officers. There's no need for the word chief to be associated with the position. So it is my recommendation that training officer Chris Shelley has the rank of training officer now. He will be an officer, and he'll have the rank just above captain because the captains are for training our subordinates. So it'd be the same rank as previous chief training officers had, just not the title.
That's terrific. And thank you for having an eye to the future of the service and putting the right structure in place for planning purposes. Any thoughts, comments, questions from council on this request from the fire chief? Seeing none, may I have a mover and a seconder to support it? Councillor Shortreed and Councillor Dayu.
Moved by Councillor Shortreed, second by Councillor Dayu. Be it resolved that Council receives report FD 521 regarding training officer position, assignment of rank, and assigns the training officer the rank of training officer.
All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Everyone have a good day.
You too. Next up is finance business. There are no, the documents are attached in the bylaw section, so we're just bringing them forward here. The first one is, this is following up from council's direction through the budget process. The grid for salaries and wages is there, as is the council remuneration. Are there any questions or thoughts, concerns from council on either of those documents? Okay, there is no resolution needed for either of these. We'll see them both in the bylaw section. Number 14, administration business, is the letter from the county CAO regarding the economic development position at the county level. And I'm going to assume that the CAO is going to take us through that.
I can, yes, thank you. You know, as council will recall, this is a recommendation of service delivery review that the county and lower tiers undertook. It has been recommended that this was one of the first initiatives that the county undertake, and it is to hire an economic development officer. It is coming to the lower tiers just for support for the position. It will be hired at the county level.
And I think it's important as well. Thank you. And I think it's important too that county council had a conversation about far more than sort of what's in here. That would all be fleshed out when the job description is created. And there is a need for there to be links to even looking in our external boards, our connection with the Lake of Bays economic development and the work that is done in Highlands East. So there's lots of sort of outlying groups that will all fall under that person's portfolio so that we can have some seamless delivery or consistencies across some of our borders. So lots of work yet to be done there. Any questions, comments from council? Councillor Dayu, oh, you've moved, you're down here now.
Yes, indeed. That sounds just great. And Mayor Moffat, if I could approach you actually as our county councillor representative and the person or the councillor who sits on our cultural committee of council here in Algonquin Highlands, I'm sure you'll recall that there was quite a lengthy conversation about economic development and the arts and the overlap a long time back now. The last time perhaps we met as the committee of council for the cultural committee, and the strong recommendation that came through there was supporting an economic development position. So perhaps your notes will contain some jewels that you can feed in at the county level on thoughts from that committee.
Yeah, thank you. And that was one of the things, and I'm just actually quickly, because I have it's left my mind already. The county report did outline what's already happening, and definitely the cultural plans and their recommendations were included in that, as well as tourism initiatives, existing initiatives and efforts by other groups. And this person is meant to take all of those things, pull together the pieces that are relevant and move those ideas forward. So absolutely. Absolutely. Any other thoughts or comments on this? Deputy Mayor Danielson.
Just that part of our discussion at the county included the fact that a good part of the first year, once this position gets in place, is to basically develop a plan, stitch the other plans that we've got together with an economic development plan and with the destination. What's the name of the tourism?
The destination management plan,
right?
Destination development plan. Yes.
So
yeah,
it's exciting.
Yeah, it is. And we've been talking about it at the county table for a number of years, well before the service delivery review. We've been talking about, bringing this position back to the county, which is where it belongs. So I'm happy to see that this is finally coming forward. Angie, did you have your hand up there? Okay. May I have a mover and a seconder to receive and support this report? Deputy Mayor Danielson and Councillor Shortreed.
By Deputy Mayor Danielson, second by Councillor Shortreed. Be it resolved, Council receives correspondence from Mike Rutter, CAO, County of Haliburton, regarding countywide economic development position as information, and further that Council supports the general rules and mandate of the position.
All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Planning business is next, and we'll bring in Mr. O'Callaghan. I don't think we're going to quite get to the record of the shortest meeting, but we're going to be close. Good morning, Mr. O'Callaghan.
Good morning.
One little item for you today on your otherwise very busy portfolio. We have a shore road allowance closure for Randall on Maple Lake.
Yes, so this is an application to close the shore road allowance in front of this property. One thing to note is, just judging by the GIS mapping, it looks like there may be some interesting property lines, but until we have a survey, we won't know for sure. So this one will certainly be flagged for further investigation once we have a survey in front of us, just to make sure no one's losing access to the water as a result of this closure. But otherwise, I would recommend it proceed through the regular steps to close the shore road allowance.
Yes, there's definitely some potential complications there. So we'll leave that in your capable hands to see how that plays out. Any questions or thoughts from council on this? May I have a mover and a seconder to receive it? Councillor Shortreed, Deputy Mayor Danielson.
Moved by Councillor Shortreed, second by Deputy Mayor Danielson. Be it resolved, council approves in principle application OSRA 1221 to stop up, close, and convey the shore road allowance fronting property located at concession 5, lot 29, geographic township of Stanhope, Maple Lake, Randall. Permit council directs the applicants to proceed in accordance with shore road allowance closing procedure.
All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. O'Callaghan.
All right, thank you.
Number 16, external boards. There's not a lot going on. Just in item E, the community safety and well-being plan. The steering committee, a date is being ascertained for the steering committee to meet for its first time. So that will get that moving, and that big work will begin. That's the update for there. I don't know, Liz, if there's anything from county that you can think of?
No, I think everybody's aware of the fact that that there was an announcement recently about the cell gap project and how that's going to go forward. So I think what they're going to do is hit the ground running and trying to look at those areas where they can easily expand service by using existing poles. So work is going to start this spring, and let's hope that it covers as many people as quickly as possible. Meanwhile, the Eastern Ontario Regional Network continues to let's say, pressure the province and the federal government on their gig project.
Yeah, we'll hope to see that move forward as well. Mm-hmm. Thank you for that. And the last item, the Muskoka River Watershed Communications Committee, there is a meeting next week. Happy to see that they are now meeting as regards to the spring freshet, similarly to how the TSW and the MNRF in the Haliburton, the Gull and South sector have been doing for years. So that meeting is next week. You can look out your window and see that there is a very, there's no chance of flooding this year so far, unless we get torrential rains. We're going to be okay. And that's it. So general business is the EORM request for the resolution of support. And Liz, would you speak to that?
Well, as I just mentioned, that there is considerable pressure being put on the province to support the gig project. There have been some bumps in that road, and so they're just looking for all the member municipalities in Eastern Ontario to provide letters of support, just to further the cause.
Yeah, it's I don't know whether it's an issue of I don't know what the issue is in the background, but there's no question we've been seeing it for a couple of years now. But even the news now is carrying stories about moving your lives to rural Ontario and living in cottage country. There was just something on the news this morning again, and these high-speed related projects are vital to not only the expectations of the people that are moving here, but the needs, the long-standing needs of the people who are already living here. So I would definitely look for a mover and a seconder to move this forward. Councillor Dayu and Councillor Shortreed, thank you. I think you were the only two options there, so I'm glad you put your hands up.
Moved by Councillor Dayu, second by Councillor Shortreed. Whereas residents and businesses across our municipality need access to modern and adequate access to high-speed broadband services, and whereas the demand for high-speed broadband services will continue to grow year after year, and whereas our residents and businesses should not continue to be disadvantaged by the lack of access to high-speed services, and whereas the Eastern Ontario Regional Network, EORN, has submitted a comprehensive regional project to deliver a gig up to 1,000 Mbps of speed, which will serve our residents and businesses long into the future. And whereas EORN's approach has proven itself very successful and represents an efficient and effective way to solve our broadband needs. Now therefore, the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Algonquin Highlands requests both the federal and provincial governments to immediately fund the Yorn Gig project. And finally, that a letter of support with a copy of this resolution be sent to Minister Monzif, Minister Scott, and MP Jamie Snail.
All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Correspondence is next. I don't believe that either of the items for support were brought forward. Is that
No.
correct? Okay. May I have a mover and a seconder to receive the correspondence listing? Councillor Shortreed, Deputy Mayor Danielson.
If I may, about correspondence.
Yes, ma'am.
I know that joint and several liability does remain a big issue, and something that we would all support seeing, some changes in. I didn't suggest supporting it because we've already supported it at the county level, and I believe that that's sufficient for now. I'm quite sure the provincial government knows that we want action there.
Yes, and yes.
Yes.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, did I have a mover and a seconder, Madam Clerk?
Yes.
I did. Would you go ahead, please?
Moved by Councillor Shortreed, seconded by Deputy Mayor Danielson. Be resolved that Council receives correspondence for the period of March 11th, 2021 to March 24th, 2021 for information.
All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Bylaws is next. May I have a mover and a seconder to accept the bylaws? Councillor Dayu, Councillor Shortreed.
Moved by Councillor Dayu, second by Councillor Shortreed. Be it resolved that the following bylaws be received and read a first time, considered read a second and third time, and finally passed with the corporate seal of fix. Bylaw 2021-27 for the setting of salary and wages for the year of 2021. Bylaw 2021-28 to establish the rates of remuneration for members of council for the year 2021. Bylaw 2021-29 to execute amended agreements to the multi-community Waste Wizard partnership agreement to include provision of a mobile app for the Township of Minden Hills, municipalities of Dysart et al. And Highlands East. Bylaw 2021-30 to execute a household hazardous waste event services extension agreement with Luckham Transport. And bylaw 2021-31 to adopt a health and safety policy.
All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. May I have a mover and a seconder for the confirmatory bylaw? Councillor Shortreed and Deputy Mayor Danielson.
Moved by Councillor Shortreed, seconded by Deputy Mayor Danielson. Be it resolved that bylaw 2021-32 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council held during its April 1st, 2021 regular meeting be received and read a first time, considered read a second and third time, and finally passed with the corporate seal affixed.
All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. And just before we adjourn, we know that there's the announcement that's coming. Everybody's tired. It's going to change our world again, and it'll also change township operations with people working from home and doing the best they can. So I think the CAO, following our EOC meeting, that the CAO is directing everyone to have a go bag at the ready so that when things happen, they are prepared to just pick up where they left off with what they need to continue on with business, and would just ask that everybody do their best to follow the guidelines and stay safe over this Easter weekend. So may I have a mover and a seconder for the adjournment? Deputy Mayor Danielson, Councillor Dayu.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Danielson, second by Councillor Dayu. Be it resolved that the April 1st, 2021 regular council meeting is hereby adjourned at 9:43 a.m.
All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. We are adjourned. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.